Welcome back, everybody. This is Artie Decker. We're back with week 2 of the high school football season. Basically, I guess the biggest takeaway from last week is just we're still in that process of kind of feeling things out. We've had a lot of teams kind of surprise us. We've had struggles from others. Um, you know, as far as going into this week, I think it's all about just jumping into region play. That's definitely has to be the story as far as pretty much everybody goes. Let's just take a quick look back at last week. These are some of your notable scores. Um, Not a whole lot really jumps out at you in this group. Let's see. Oaks Bluff putting a pretty good little beating on Southside there. That was not that big a shock, as we've already spoke about. Southside probably going to be in for a very long year, and Oaks Bluff, don't count them out just yet. I know they've lost a lot, but they still have Darien Meads, which is, you know, more than enough for most people. Cedar Bluff getting off to a good start, taking out their old nemesis Spring Garden. At least this time, though, it's not the de facto region title game. In this case, it's just basically a tune-up before the region games start. Thompson with another dominant win there, 47-0. Hill City with a nice little win, 27-7. Uh, Dale Pruitt and company getting the big win, 33-0 over Columbia, just taking care of business. As we spoke of last week, Spanish Fort just snipping by Daphne. Um, Wetumpka, nice little impressive win. Interesting note about this West Point Arab game. At one point, it was 26-7, but West Point managed to come back, score 20 in a row, and sneak out of there with a win, denying Coach Glasscock his first win. Boaz with another very impressive win. The Collins kid, somewhere in the neighborhood of 240 yards rushing. Big night for him. And Gunnersville, obviously, is down this year. We went ahead and picked them this past week. Just thought they would, bounce back after a tough first game versus North Jackson. But it just seems to be Gunnersville may be down for the count in 2018. Etowah with a nice, impressive win over Moody. I believe that's the first time ever those two teams have met. So, just a dominant win. This was kind of a surprise. We actually picked J.B. Pennington to win this football game, but Susan Moore kind of sneaky, sneaking up the chart, so to speak, with a nice little win there in the upset, if you will. This was an interesting game. Sandrock actually trailed this game 12-0, I believe, at halftime, but managed to come back out in the second half, get something going, and sneak out of there with a win over Coach Morris and his Bulldogs. Looking here, we got Coosa with a nice win over Appalachian. To my understanding, Dartavius Britton had 368 yards total offense. Monster game for him. And then on the defensive side of things, that 22 is a little misleading because Appalachian actually had two kickoff return for touchdowns. So, you know, uh, as far as the stats go, Appalachian only had 92 yards of total offense. So they continue to struggle offensively. But a nice win for Coach Woods and the Conquerors. But a nice win for Hubbard, just taking out a kind of struggling Shoals Christian, but nevertheless a win. This Gordo Aliceville, we thought it would be a good game, and it pretty much lived up to its billing, and a big win for the Wave going forward. Um, this was a game we kind of jumped on the bandwagon. We thought Asbury might have a chance to make it two in a row. Obviously, just didn't happen. Yoseville takes care of business at home, 34-0. Looking forward here, let's look at Terrell Miller with an impressive opening win. This was another game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we took Tanner last week. Basically, wishful thinking maybe to get things going for them, but just doesn't happen. Very impressive win for Clements, 32-0 in that one. Cherokee, or rather Colbert County, just smashing a pretty good little Cherokee team, so that's impressive for Colbert County. This game, Collinsville, Crossville. Collinsville, believe this thing was 40-0 at halftime, just dominating the lines, and you know, huge, huge start for Collinsville, um, and a lackluster, maybe falling back down to where they were 2 3 years ago. Crossville, DAR, impressive win over Douglas. This was a game we actually kind of, I think, picked Decatur in this one, but Austin was able to get the win in a wild one, 60-45. Another good game here. I believe this game went to double overtime. Russellville sneaking by Deschler. Nice win for them. Looking forward here. Let's look at that Faultville Vinewood. That's a nice little win for Faultville, stepping out of classification and getting the W. Looking here, we had the Top Cat game. We actually picked Fort Payne in a close one. Fort Payne just really couldn't get much of nothing going. Came in, to my understanding, with 5 people out to injury, and I believe added to that total of about 4 more. So the injury bug just continues to bite the Cats, and now Coach Elmore is feeling that pain just like Coach Ellis did last year. But a big win for Don Jacobs in Scottsboro after struggling in the Jamboree versus Savannah. Nice little win there, as we spoke of last week. Georgiana really red hot coming in there, and but Luverne was able to take care of business, basically justifying their top 5 ranking in 2A. Speaking of top 5, you got number 1 5 just dominating a pretty decent little Geraldine team. I believe this game was only 20-0 at halftime, so they played pretty well in the first half, but just kind of faded in the second half. Ramburn just blows out Glencoe. Glencoe just continues to struggle. New coach. They were thinking maybe a new attitude, but looks like it could be a very long year for them, dropping that one. Hanley had Tallahassee on the ropes, just couldn't quite punch them out. Hewitt Trustful, another nice little win out of state. Hillcrest Evergreen, very impressive. Holly Pond, we picked them last week. I thought this game would be a little closer, though. But a good win for them and a rough start for Eider in this one. Looking on, we have Jackson. I've told you, they're a good little team. Keep your eye out for them as they go to Alexandria and get a win in this one. Looking on, we have Lynette trying to bounce back after that opening loss, and they do so against their rivals, 35-7. Very impressive there for the Panthers. Randolph with a nice little win over Lauderdale County. Number 1, Leroy bites the dust to, I believe, 4A, potentially 5A Citronelle. Good. I mean, pretty much good year in, year out. Had a nice year last year, so no shame in losing to a bigger school like that. Once again, don't count out Leroy. I mean, they're gonna fall, I'm sure, in the polls, but uh, it is what it is. Looking forward here, Welborn taking out Lincoln. Big matchup between these two schools, Maplesville and Fultondale. Not quite as close as I would expected, and as I took the home team on this one. I took Fulton Bell, but Maplesville was able to go in there and pretty much dominate this game. So very impressive win for the Red Devils of Maplesville. Looking forward here, let's look at this game at section. Great game. From my understanding, it was 12-12 late in the third quarter. Coach Powell and company were able to get it going and sneak out of there with a 25-12 win. So great start for them. We got our defending North champion in 3A, Randolph County, with kind of a lackluster win over a good Notasulga team. I would expect that to be a little more bigger in margin, but you know, is what it is. Win nevertheless. Looking on, we have Oxford and Gadsden City, as I spoke of. Thought this game could get ugly, and it did get ugly. And Bart Sessions and company just, you know, they have a lot more questions than they do answers at this point, as the Titans just continue to struggle. Um, Looking forward here, speaking of teams that are trying to find it, so to speak, uh, Coach Steve Smith and company were actually trailing in this game. I believe 20-12. Were able to make a run there in the latter part of the game to win it 32-20. But in years past, this game would have been a blowout. So it really kind of speaks to what Steve Smith and company are trying to face and build in people. Looking on, we have this North Jackson Plainview game. When we picked North Jackson, did not expect it quite to this magnitude. They dominated. It was never close. Huge win for North Jackson, and another black eye for the Bears. Looking on, we have Westbrook taking out Raglan. We called that one. Could have probably been worse. So not bad for Raglan on that one. Looking on, really impressive as we spoke of. Team to watch out for. Sachs just dominates Cleveland County. Huge win there. Looking here, we have a kind of a shocker. We took. I told you this would be an extremely close game. You can throw it either way, kind of situation. You got 5A starters rolling into a good 3A team in Sylvania, coming off very successful year last year. But I think Mr. Shavers is going to find out that it's not easy being a running back in high school football when you don't have a very good offensive line, and they definitely are really struggling in that area. So he's the big gaping holes he had last year. He was running through; they're just not there, and he's going to have the struggles, and so are the Rams as they just take one on the chin from a good Stars team, 27-3. Mars Hill, very impressive win over Sheffield. Didn't really see that coming. That's a big win there. Shocking some folks. Looking on, let's look at Sparkman taking out Hazel Green. That game, I kind of expected a little bit bigger margin of victory, but a win nevertheless for Coach White and Sparkman. Looking on, let's look at this Cherokee County St. Clair County game. I thought this game would be really close, and I believe we actually picked the Saints on this one. But very impressive win for Cherokee County as they debut this season. Looking on, let's look at this Thomasville, who's always good, always got quality kids, always got kids being recruited. Just a good little program in 4A, taking out, your defending state champion, Sweetwater, 28-14. No shame in that at all for Sweetwater as they go down in defeat. Let's look at Yumas Wright. As we spoke of, clear cut number one in 4A, just dominating a really good 3A team in Mobile Christian, 37-7. Very impressive win. Let's look at Valley Head goes to ASD and takes care of business. really impressive win for them in Coach Vincent's debut, 38-6. We'll see if they can build off that going forward. The struggles continue for West End. Uh, they've had a lot of success last 2 to 3 years, and just seem to maybe fell back this year, giving up so many points, and it didn't get any better than that as Pleasant Valley beats them 68-28. Dominating win for Pleasant Valley. We picked this one actually upset. Westminster Christian takes out Madison County 36-20 as Westminster continues to roll this season early on. Ohatchee takes care of business over White Plains. Wadley smashes the decent little Woodland team. And then you got Pisgah and Coach Luke Pruitt's debut 50-28 over a lackluster Woodville team, but a win nevertheless, so a great start there. Let's look at our new, fresh off the press polls. You got Thompson as your new number 1 in 7A as Hoover takes it on the chin from St. John's of DC, I believe 42-14, in a weird situation because they had to delay on Friday night, had to finish the game Saturday morning. I don't know if it would have made a lot of difference, but it could have been a little closer potentially, but a loss nevertheless for Coach Niblett and his Bucks. So that kind of opens the door for Thompson to go to number 1 in 7A. Central Phoenix City gets 2 votes. Spain Park, they finally kind of played with fire that first week. They got it this next week in losing that game, but they still stay in the polls at number 10. Kind of surprising. Austin kind of sneaking up the board after that opening loss with that win to get to 1-1. Grissom, sneaky little team, 2-0. Keep an eye out for them. They're going to spoil somebody's season potentially. Wetumpka still holding strong at number 1, but Oxford actually gets 2 first place votes this week at number 2. Henson gets 2 first place votes. Clay Chaltville gets 2 first votes. They're kind of lining up there. That's a really deep classification there. As it's just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out as the season goes forward. Looking on, let's look at 5A. Briarwood's still holding strong at number 1, Etowah at number 2, but Etowah's got 2 first place votes this week, so they could slowly sneak up and get it. Tallahassee there, Hanley almost pulled the big upset, but Tallahassee was able to come back late and sneak out of there with a win and hold strong at number 6. St. Clair County actually drops a little bit. I believe they were somewhere in the ballpark of 4-5 last week. They dropped to 9 this week. Anybody else really sticking out there? The Boaz Pirates getting some love. Let's look at them there at about maybe we'll call it 16 or 17. So that's huge for them. Huge for them. After all the struggles they've had over the past 5 years, really. Scottsboro actually got a vote. That's kind of a shocker. At roughly about 21 there. Holt's Bluff. This is the highest they've been ranked since '98 at number 2. It might be paper at this point. It may not be. Darren Meade, he is legit, but I don't know if they have enough to continue that kind of success as being a number 2 team. UMS Wright is pretty much unanimously number 1 in that. Hillcrest Evergreen still number 3. You defending champ. Don't forget about them as they try to defend their title. Jacksonville, we spoke of earlier, sneaking in the polls there at number 9. Cherokee County also at 11 there. There's that quick or fast riser this year, North Jackson at 14. After a very impressive win over Plainview this past week. Randolph County still holding strong at number 1. Sacks, number 2. I like it. 6 first place votes just kind of nipping at their heels. Piedmont, like we said, pretty much a rebuilding year for them at number 3. And Mobile Christian drops to number 4 after just getting their doors blowed off by UMS Wright. Thomasville actually gets a first place vote this week at number 5. Boltondale drops to 8. T.R. Miller sneaks in there. Coach Ether, just keep an eye out for him. That's the same Coach Etchers that used to be at Leeds with all his success. But at a program like T.R. Miller, I'm telling you, keep an eye out for them this season. Westminster, we spoke about such a great start. I believe that puts them to about 14 or 15, so they're sneaking up the board. And even Holly Pond there at about 17. Clements, nice little start for them. Welborn, so many good, kind of surprising starts for some of these teams. And then you got Sylvania way down the board there at about 20 after that. Pretty embarrassing debut for them the other night. Looking on, we got Fife, pretty much unanimously number 1 in 2A, except for Leroy. Leroy dropped, but they still got a first place vote. Somebody's still feeling them at number 5. Wauhatchie moves up to 4. Reeltown, I'm telling you, keep your eye out for them. Rebels are a really interesting team to keep an eye on as they improve week by week at number 3. Luverne, a really good team, holding strong at number 2. Thorsby kind of come out of nowhere. They're all of a sudden sneaking up there at number 7. Lafayette took one on the chin from Lynette, but no shame in that at number 8. And then the new kid on the block in 2A, Cedar Bluff, getting some love, moving them to number 10 in the polls. The Bison there just on the cusp, number 11, and also maybe one of the hottest teams in high school football right now, especially offensively. Collinsville at number 12, setting up that big matchup this week. Celigent still struggling at about 13. Westbrook there about 14. Aliceville, no shame, at about 16. Ramburn, big win over Glencoe, getting some votes this week. Lynette moves back to number 1. It's not unanimous because they got 21. Maplesville all of a sudden number 2. So Sweetwater goes from 1 to 3. I'm telling you, in that 1A pole race, so to speak, you lose a ball game, you're gonna drop pretty far because there's so many people ready to jump you this year. Brantley actually gets first place vote this week at number 6. That's kind of unusual. New kid on the block, Elba, big win over Opp, 53-33 in their coach's debut. Sneaks in there at 8. Georgiana loses, but they stay in it at number 10. Pickens at number 9. Faultville at about 11. And Faultville has been a really good 2A team over the past 2 years. I mean, nothing great, but a solid team. So they'll be dangerous in 1A and be a problem for some people. Same way as St. Luke's on that note. Jermaine Brown, what more can you say? The kid is a flat-out ball player, and he will give somebody a headache. Morris Hill, very impressive win over Sheffield. Don't forget them at roughly about 16. And Wadley, we thought they would fall off. Very impressive opening win over Woodland. Right now, we got you caught up from what happened last week, and now we're looking at the polls. We got the table spread. Now let's look at what's actually on the table for this week. We got, let's look at anything really jump out at me. That Florence-Austin game should be interesting. As we've talked about, Austin kind of falling back a little bit. Florence is kind of on the rise. Would not surprise me one bit to see the Falcons get the win in that one. Hewitt Trustful, Oak Mountain. Oak Mountain's a good little team, but I don't think they've got enough to contend with Paul Tyson and the Huskies in that one. Looking forward here, let's look at Spain Park and Gadsden City. This is going to be an interesting game because I kind of feel like Sparkman might have fell back just a little bit after, kind of struggling with a lackluster Hazel Green team. So they might be an opportunity here for the Titans to finally get something positive going and get the win. But if I had to pick it, I would say Sparkman's probably going to win this ball game. It's going to be close, but I just have a feeling that it's just going to continue to be a downward spiral for Bart Sessions and his Titans. Looking on, you got the monster matchup. Huge, this game actually was, I believe, 7 or 8 last year. So we moved this thing way forward in the schedule, which is kind of an interesting move. It's good for us, maybe not so good for the kids. Uh, we had to wait a long time last year for this matchup. We built it up, and it lived up to the heavyweight fight feel. This is probably going to be nothing different. You got so many kids being recruited on both of these teams. You got Freeman versus Niblett. Uh, it was 1-1 last year. They split it. Thompson getting the regular season, winning the region title, and then Hoover spoiling it for him in the playoffs and getting it when it counted. Um, you know, Ashford's really going to have to play well. He played well in his debut, but didn't play so well last week. So, we're going to find out, I think, who this kid really is. I expect him to play well. And I just have a feeling that some way, somehow, the Bucks are going to win this ball game and take control of that region. Even though, you know, Tangliova is probably going to play awesome, but it's probably not going to be enough as the Bucks win it. You heard it here first. Vestavia playing pretty well right now. Buddy Anderson got them rolling. Getting a win over, I believe, Homewood last week. Would not surprise me one bit to see them knock off Spain Park in that one. Albertville rolling into Fort Payne. Fort Payne trying to find a win at this point, and just seems like, any type of momentum they can get, somebody gets hurt, something bad happens for Coach Elmore and his Cats. Dale, on the other hand, and his Aggies, very impressive opening win. Granted, it was against Columbia. Be interesting to see what they do against a little bit better competition in Fort Payne. But I got a feeling that it's going to be just like it has been the last 2 years. The Aggies will get the W in this one, and Coach Elmore and his Cats will continue to slide. Looking on, we've got look at that Coleman Decatur game. I got a feeling old Coleman might sneak out of there with a win in that one. Even though Decatur's playing pretty well. Looking on, look at Pell City and Oxford. Pell City's playing really well, but going to Oxford, it's going to be a little too much for them to chew, and they're going to gag on this one. And I like the Yellow Jackets to actually get the W and move on as the dominant team that they are. That Pinson Valley, Shades Valley, it was a great matchup last year, but Shades Valley actually lost their quarterback. He graduated, and Bo next, he didn't graduate. So I like Pinson Valley to go ahead and probably get the win big this time around in that one. Looking on, let's look. You got Ardmore, Scottsboro. Scottsboro coming off a surprising win. Ardmore, not a bad team. Not a bad team at all. But I don't know. The way I feel about it, if you can beat Fort Payne, surely you can beat Ardmore. And I'm going to go with Jacobs and Company to get the win in that one at home. Boaz is riding high, and they're rolling into a really bad Douglas team. And Mr. Collins is going to have a monster game. That 300-yard mark is probably not out of reach. And I like the Pirates big in this one to be 3-0 this season. Brewer is off to a pretty decent little start. Arab not so much. And I actually like Brewer to go ahead and get the win in a close one and continue the downward spiral for the Knights. We got, let's look at Etowah. Yeah, you heard me. Number 2, the Blue Devils, rolling into Crossville. Yeah, Crossville, it's going to be a really long night for you. Too many athletes. This thing's going to get ugly fast. And I like number 2 just to blow the doors off the lines. Looking on, we have Guntersville going into Madison County. Guntersville, as we spoke of earlier, just really struggling. Madison County, they're trying to figure out what life is without Matt Flint and Tay Pruvens, and so far they really struggled to do so. But I think they got just enough to sneak by the Wildcats in that one. Let's look at Southside and Sardis. Southside, they're struggling, and Sardis ain't. Sardis look pretty decent against Sylvania, and I like them in a blowout just to continue the misery of the Panthers in this one. Looking on, you have that St. Clair County Moody game will be very interesting. But would not surprise me a bit to see Moody sneak out of there with a win. But if I had to make a pick, I'm going to say the Saints survive in that one. Looking on, we have Asheville rolling into Jacksonville. Jacksonville red hot and should continue to be so in that one. Cherokee County going into Anniston. A few weeks ago, I said this would be a pretty close game, but Anniston's not looked that great. And, Cherokee County kind of surprising dominant win over the Saints of St. Clair last week. And I like them to go ahead and go on the road and get the win in that one. Cleveland County, Aniana, I'd probably over Cleveland County. And a close one on that one. DAR going into Fairview. DAR should get the W in that one. Danville, it's going to be a long, long night in Stevenson for you because North Jackson's on a roll. And you took a beating from a lackluster Brewer team. Uh, so it's going to be a long night for you as the Chiefs should roll in that one. Deshler probably going to bounce back and get the win over Elkmont in that one. Oaks Bluff rolling into White Plains. Like I say, we're not going to find out a whole lot about Oaks Bluff. I think they'll roll in this one. But, their challenge will come as the season goes on to see if they really are that number 2 team that the polls say they are. Looking on UMS Wright going into Andalusia. This is going to be a great game. They played twice last year, and Delusia, I believe, got them in the first game, and UMS Wright redeemed themselves in the second game, which catapulted them to Tuscaloosa to play for the state title. Andalusia probably may not be quite as good as they were last year, and UMS Wright has proven that they might be better. So I like, Simon Smith, monster game, and the W and rolling forward in that one. Looking on, Colbert Heights rolling into Westminster Christian. Colbert Heights, nice year last year, but they're going to run into a buzzsaw when they play Westminster in this one, and I like them to keep going with the momentum that they've already had. Looking forward here, JB Pennington going to Hanceville. JB Pennington probably going to get back on track with a win after getting upset last week by Susan Moore. Locust Ford going into Fultondale. Probably going to be a long night for the Ford because Fultondale's going to be angry after getting kind of embarrassed by Maplesville this past week. Holly Pond, midfield, a solid little team. Holly Pond's kind of on a roll, so I like them to go ahead and get the win and keep it going in that one. Looking forward here, let's look at Pisgah going to Brindley Mountain. Coach Pruitt and company will be 2-0 because Brindley is just lackluster thereof, and Pisgah big in that one. Plainview going into Geraldine. Coach Waldrop and company, they are what they are, and Plainview, it is what it is for them also, and it's not a very pretty picture at this point. I mean, their stock is dropping faster than Nike at this point. Coach Ledbetter, all of a sudden, that coming home to mama stuff, it's going to be interesting if things continue the way they are, because mama may kick him out of the house as time goes on. But I do like actually Geraldine to win the ball game, just being at home. I just don't think Plainview's going to find it in time to get the win in that one. Pleasant Valley playing some really good ball. I mean, for them, some best I've seen in quite some time from them. Going into the Field of Champions, a definite rebuild job at this point for Bulldogs. It would not shock me at all if this game ain't close. Uh, but I do like Steve Smith and company to get the win just because it's at home in that one. Randolph County going to Glencoe. A few years ago, this game would be really good, but not this year. Glencoe's not very good at all, and you got Randolph County loaded. Pretty much didn't lose anything from last year. They should roll in that one. Looking here, Sylvania going to Susan Moore. Susan Moore, kind of a shocking team. 2-0, impressive win over, I believe, West End in the opening week, and then sneaking out of there with a big dub over Pennington this past week. Would not surprise me at all if they didn't get the win at home over Sylvania, but we're going to say that Sylvania finds just enough because this will definitely be more of an even playing field compared to last week. Sardis had a lot of kids, a lot of big kids too, and Susan Moore cannot have that kind of depth and that kind of size. So I like Sylvania to find a way to get it together, play a little more like they did in Jamboree, and get the win in this one. But it should be very close. Let's look here. Walter Welborn going into Weaver. This has the potential to be a really good game. Also, Welborn playing really well. Weaver loaded as they were last year. I would actually have to go with Weaver in this one though. It could be very high scoring, but I do like them to get the W in that. Asbury going into Cedar Bluff. The way the schedule's set up, it's pretty much perfect for Coach McCorder and his Tigers. You get the opening game versus you know opponents you're very familiar with, being Spring Garden, get the win there. Should get an easy win over an improving Asbury team, but I don't think they're going to have enough for Ivory Star and the Tigers in this one. Looking forward here, let's look at Colbert County going into Tanner. Tanner really struggling. Um, you know, I think they could play this one in the parking lot, and I'd still pick Colbert County to win the ball game with ease. And Tanner, I don't know. It could get ugly. Um, huge, huge, huge. I can't even begin to emphasize how big this matchup is. You say why? I say this. This is a battle for number 2 in that region behind 5. Because if you win this game, you take control. Collinsville off to this fantastic start. We haven't seen this in I don't know how long. I mean, you could probably make an argument to say that Collinsville hadn't been this good in 20 years and be, right on the money. Barkley, McKinney, Jones, they're all playing well. And they're going to roll into Higdon and, Landon Green slinging the rock. But the offensive line, a little iffy. Um, defensively, pretty nice performance at times against Dade County. Can they slow down that high, you know, high voltage impact attack of Caleb Jones and his Panthers? Um, I've kind of went back and forth on this thing. I mean, you might look at it from the standpoint of Panthers are on a roll. Can they continue to do it? But I just have a feeling it's at Higdon, and I mean, this is probably going to be the best defense that Collinsville's seen. Crossville is not very good at all, and in Plainview they're struggling. So this is probably going to be the best offense that Collinsville defense has saw. And I'm curious to see how they respond. They were the group that struggled last year, kind of held the team back, so to speak. Um, but can they, you know, that was kind of my big question mark for Collinsville. I knew offensively they were going to be fine, but could that defense find something to help them? And this is going to be their first big test. And I actually like the Bison to sneak out of there with one of those Higdon miracle wins and claim that number 2 spot for the time being. Looking forward here, Gaston going into Ramburn. That's going to be a very long night for Coach Morris. That's a long trip in general, but it's going to be ugly once they get down there. Looking forward here, let's look at Ohatchee going into Woodland. Should be maybe a decent test for just a little bit, but Ohatchee should roll in that one. RC Hatch going into Leroy. Going to be a long night for RC Hatch as Leroy looks to bounce back from that beating they took last week. Reeltown should roll over Fayetteville with no problem at all. Huge matchup here. Sandrock Ider. You say, why? I say this. This is a battle. In years past, this would be a potential battle of 3 or 4. You lose the game, you still could be fourth. I don't think that's the case this year. That's a more beefed up region, and the way it looks, if you lose this game, you might be out altogether. Uh, you definitely need to win if you want to have hope, because the way the thing is shaping up, you got Fife, you got North Sand, you got Collinsville. Those can interchange at that 2 and 3 spot. And then you got the battle of Cedar Bluff, The Rock, or Ider, or whoever else in that region. And that's the way it's basically shaping up. So if you lose this game, you're really behind the 8 ball. Sandrock really struggled last week. Ider, from what I've heard, kind of on the downward spiral this year, kind of in a rebuilding mode. They do have the Higdon kid. I just don't think he's going to be enough, and I like the Rock to get the win in this one on the road. Section going into 5. Section's extremely improved, but they could keep it close for a while, but I like 5 to just win it with just their depth in general. They have, they're so deep, so many kids. The section just doesn't have that luxury, so I like 5 to win it, especially it's at home. So should be a win for the Devils in that. West End going into Cleveland. It's going to be a long night for West End. Cleveland's really playing well offensively, and West End can't stop anybody, and it's going to be a very long night for them in that one. Looking here at the 1A, Coosa Christian going in R.A. Hubbard. Great matchup. Big matchup in the region. Both these teams have been mentioned to potentially win the region. So basically, if you win this game, you're kind of ahead of the pack at the current moment anyway. Coosa Christian, impressive win last week. Hubbard, 2 good wins to start the season. Maybe a little bit of a shocker to some. Going on the road, Coosa has definitely struggled in years past. Like I say, this is a very difficult game to pick. But if I would probably have to lean, just because it's at home, I would lean more toward Hubbard to get the win in this one. Decatur Heritage 2-0 wins. Not the greatest competition, so really don't know if they're legit or not. Coach Heath Vincent and his Tigers coming off a nice win over a lackluster ASD team. So we really don't know who these teams are at this point. And Decatur making the long trip to Valley Head, but I do. I'm going to have to go with what success has been in the past, and I'm going to go with Decatur Heritage to get the win and make a big step forward. This is kind of like the other matchup with Coosa. You get the win and you definitely take a step toward making the playoffs. And I like Decatur to sneak out of there with the win on the road. Faultville, Woodville. It's gonna be a long night for Woodville. Faultville should roll in that one. Let's look at that Raglan Donahoe should be interesting. Raglan playing solid ball, and Donahoe with a nice bounce back win last week after taking it on the chin that first week. Um, I would probably have to go with Donahoe. They're pretty tough at home, and just for that fact, I think they'll sneak out of there with a win in that one. Oh, this game. If you like points and you like athletes, Sweetwater going into St. Louis, it's going to be a great game. Um, and just like I say, this could be your 40 to 50 kind of game. Um, so hard to pick. Um, I would probably lean more toward uh, Sweetwater. I think that defensively they're pretty good, and I think they might have just enough to bottle up Mr. Brown and just enough to sneak by him and get the win on the road. Wadley trying to rebuild. They lost Drake after several seasons with him, so they're trying to find new stars, and they roll into Lynette. Lynette kind of feeling themselves out in 1A. Be a great matchup, but I do like Lynette to go ahead and get the win in that one. Winterburg going into Spring Garden. I would probably lean towards Spring Garden. Go ahead and get the win in that one. Looking back to last week, probably my team of the week. It was a very difficult pick, but I would probably have to lean towards. Um, I mean, just for the sentimental value, probably Boaz. Boaz has had, like I've said, a very difficult time um, over the last few years, so it's a huge win for them to get a local W over a team that's pretty much put a beating on them last, I don't know how long, Gunnersville. So big win for them. Congratulations to the Pirates as they are our team of the week for this past week. Uh, just closing the show here. Let's look at we got questions from Art or excuse me, Nikita and Brock. Brock says talking about Fort Payne. Can this be the week that they finally get the you know kind of the top off things and get the win over Del Pruitt and the Aggies? I don't think so. Too many injuries, too many questions at quarterback, and Jacob Dendy and company are going to be ready to rock and come in there and get the win in that one and make it three in a row for the Aggies over the Cats. Just for the fact that Fort Payne's just too banged up. If they were healthy, I would give them a pretty good chance being at home, but I just don't see it happening in that one. Nikita says, or rather ask, when will the struggles of Plainview end? And to be straight with you, I don't know. Quarterback play, it ain't got much better. You look at some of the stats. The game against Collinsville, you had 4 first downs. How in the world do you score points of any kind if you can't get first downs, you can't move the ball, you definitely can't make big plays. So there's no firepower there. They're at a point where they're probably going to have to start trying to rip the ball out and score on defense because the offense is just terrible. None of these kids have stepped up into these holes. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's hard to lose a Willingham. It's hard to lose a Wooten. It's hard to lose the Broles kid. There were so many playmakers last year, and now this year they're just not there. And basically the only one you had was the Rodriguez kid. Of course, he's out. And as I've said, McLaughlin kid he's just not found anything at that quarterback position. So they don't have any kind of passing game, and they can't run the ball, and just it's going to be a struggle. And like I say, Coach Ledbetter's stock is going down hard at this point. But you know, they match up pretty well with Geraldine, but I've got a feeling that they're just not going to have enough to get the win on the road in a big region matchup. Um, as we've talked about earlier, that it's huge because it's a jockeying position because that region's wide open, and all of a sudden, going in the season, I thought it was wide open, but now you basically have got to throw Susan Moore in the mix, playing as well as they have. Nobody really expected that, so I mean, it just got more wide open going forward in that region. Well, that pretty much wraps us up. I'm Marty Decker. Just saying, have a fantastic week. Be safe and save me a spot on the fence. And we'll see you next week. God bless, guys.